Okay, hold up, everyone. Drop everything. Yeah. Hey, hey, everybody, welcome to Listen, this is extremely important news. Eternal and I have just discovered a new romance language. You heard me. That's right. Everyone thought that, you had your French, your Catalan, all that stuff, but no. We just found another one. And we're gonna showcase to you our findings, because this is extremely important. What was that, Abby? What do you think about it, Abby? What do you think about these developments? Huh? Okay. Alright, so I'm going to showcase to you a sample text of this new language that was discovered very recently over the past several weeks. And I actually already sent this to various people on the Discord server. I made a ping. Everyone really enjoyed that ping, and I asked for people to give their best impressions on how to translate a particular block of text written in their official orthography. And the official orthography looks like this. As you can see, obviously a Romance language. Looks nice, looks beautiful, looks kind of interesting. And people were kind of catching on with some of the hints about the vibes, so I asked them to send me in voice recordings of how they think that text should be pronounced based exclusively off of the text itself. No phonological context or anything, because I just wanted to see what people would think, how this Romance language would compare to other Romance languages, both stylistically, orthographically, etc., based on the context clues that they had alone. And, here's the results. Yeah, you are all wrong. Now, the astute among us may have deduced that there must be something very wrong here when we suspiciously didn't provide you with any IPA transcription and subsequently refused to comment on that fact. Now see, that is because the actual pronunciation of this most glorious of sentences, which by the way is the first sentence of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, is actually pronounced like this. Oh yes, you may have noticed just now that this is not your ordinary Romance language. This isn't some Italian, French, Spanish, and it also isn't Portuguese, plural, that is. No, this is Portugoose. So let's first talk about the phonology of Portugoose, or should I say the phonetics. So that's right, don't forget that we're talking about literal geese here. Overly human-centric phonological conventions like the IPA aren't gonna cut it here. Bear with me for a minute. This is not gonna take too long, I promise, but it is definitely necessary to fully comprehend the sheer enormity that is this language. When discussing vowels in phonetics, there's this concept of formants. Formants are the centers of resonant frequencies in a vowel sound. So basically the frequencies that are the loudest, and these frequencies determine how we perceive that vowel. There's also this tool that we can use to visualize this called Pratt. Ugh. Let's do it. It's been a while since I've done this. E. So I guess my sound system is too powerful for Pratt's recording capabilities. If it doesn't work, as it has not been showing my sound waves when I'm trying to record, then just use something different. So I'm going to slap open Audacity and I'm going to say a lovely little vowel real quick, assuming that this one has the proper recording device and everything, and it looks like it does. So let's see. E, and it worked. Nice. Cool. E.mp3.
Let's drag that into Pride and that should work.
Yes. Read from
Read
file.
from file, maybe?
That sounds about right. Let's see what it does. Read that file.
Okay.
Will it do it? E. Nice.
Okay.
There we go. That's what a vowel looks like.
Yeah. On the bottom.
Alright, so this is called a spectrogram, and it basically shows us what frequencies these sounds are made up of. Down here, we can see that it's louder around here. It gets quieter in this lighter area here, and then suddenly gets significantly louder here. Now, these louder bands of frequencies are the so-called formants. Now, we really only care about the first and second formant, which are typically called the F1 and F2. And there's a couple more up here, like this F3, F4, F5, blah, blah, blah. But it's harder to say what those mean precisely. The ones that signify meaning are the bottom two, sometimes the third one, but like mostly just the first two. Alright, now this is all a bit abstract, so let's visualize this in a perhaps somewhat more familiar fashion. So on the y-axis here, we have the F1 going top to bottom, and on the x-axis is the F2 going left to right. And as you can see, this is starting to look a little familiar, isn't it, right? Because this is just the IPA vowel trapezoid. As we can see, the F1 corresponds to height. A higher F1 value means more open, and the F2 corresponds to frontness or backness. The higher F2 value means more fronted. You can see here that we have a picture of how human vowels work. Well, let's talk about goose vowels. If you look at the legend here, cyan-colored vowels are human vowels, and orange vowels are goose vowels. Now, so far we have these two here, which are nothing out of the ordinary, right? But then, it just keeps going, and yeah. So, in case this didn't fully register, the normal human vowels have an F1 of up to around 1,000 hertz, but this has an F1 of, yeah, quite a bit more than 1,000 hertz. Lastly, before we move on for phonetics, because I haven't given any fellow linguists watching this enough Pratt PTSD just yet, trust me, this hurts me as much as it does you. Let's take a look at the spectrogram of a goose vowel for a second. Okay, now let's take a look at what we have here. Here is a goose vowel. This is our first goose vowel. Let's display our formants. Oh, the formants are already showing. Would you look at that? Isn't that just beautiful? This is what a regular vowel's spectrogram looks like on the left here. And, and this is what a goose vowel looks like. Now, if you think this looks bad, you're wrong. This is actually one of the good ones. Let's pull up V6 real quick. This, on the left now, this is what a bad one looks like. Like, I can't even tell where the formants are here anymore. The best that we could do is an educated guess, really. Like, at least this one, looking back at this V1 right here, our first goose vowel, we could sort of make out a semblance of formants, right? You can see some clear, thick bands in there, but for V6, this particular vowel on the left, things have just gone to complete hell. This is a nightmare. So on our goose vowel 6, our F1 is 1,111 hertz.
For human vowel, the highest the F1 ever gets is maybe around 900, and that's an R. Like a fully open R is 900.
That goose's lowest undertone, basically, is 1,111.
Wait, do you see where it says in the prod window, directly below the spectrogram, where it says on the left one, for instance, where it says point like 0.1141?
Yeah.
Above that, you can click on that. It'll play it.
Oh god. I was not expecting it to do that. Oh no. As opposed to the very sane in comparison goose vowel.
By the way, you see that red line, if you click further on the left in the spectrogram, because if it will click, it will only play the section of the vowel that you selected there.
Yeah,
so yeah. Play starting at the red line. Yeah.
It sounds like a freaking horn honking or something. It's terrifying. Viewers, you can see what we're dealing with here when we're looking at these goose sounds. This is something beyond what humans would be able to comprehend for sure, but the Portugoose, it's a casual daily matter. Alright, so now that I'm done traumatizing my fellow linguistics majors, let's talk about the phonology of Portugoose. Now, we already established that the IPA doesn't quite work for this, so instead we've numbered the vowels and consonants. The table here lists the average formant values for the F1, F2, and F3 of Portugoose vowel phonemes. With that out of the way, the Portugoose vowels are... and Portuguese's consonant phonemes are... Now, classifying consonants runs into similar problems as the vowels, which is why they are given here using a series of phonetic parameters, namely their center of gravity, standard deviation, skew, and kurtosis. And I could get into what that means, but look it up. I'll do it in a video someday. Assigning names to these sounds is similarly problematic and would probably require an ornithologist with detailed knowledge of the goose vocal tract. However, we managed to assign a tentative label to at least one of these. C1 can be described as some manner of hissing sound, according to the paper Respiratory Mechanics of Sound Production in Chickens and Geese by J.H. Brackenbury from 1977. Ahem, and I quote, "Hissing is caused by a stream of expiratory air escaping from the constricted glottis. We could thus label this sound as some manner of glottal fricative." Now, this is a good moment to remind ourselves that this is not merely goose. This is Portugoose, which means that in addition to geese, we also need to talk about Portuguese. Next up, as you can see, the Portugoose orthography makes use of some of the same letters that Portuguese uses. However, once again, keep in mind that we're dealing with literal geese here. Portugoose words may be derived from Portuguese ones, but between the havoc wrought upon Portuguese pronunciation by the goose vocal tract and the fact that we're dealing with literal bird brains here, there ends up being little to no connection between the letters used for any given sound and the pronunciation of that sound. Moreover, since Portugoose has vastly fewer consonant phonemes, several Portuguese consonants ended up undergoing a series of fairly unconventional mergers. And yeah, the NH digraph is just silent for some ungodly reason. I don't know what the geese were thinking. On to some grammar stuff. Portuguese morphology is both straightforward and absolutely atrocious. So, if you know Arabic, Hebrew, or similar languages, good start, right? You may have heard of the triconsonantal roots. But, have you ever heard of trivocalic roots? Yeah, that's right. The, fundamental form of the Portugoose verb consists of up to 3 vowels. For example, there is the E right here. Of course, not actually pronounced that way. It is actually pronounced as such. And it is the verb to forget from the Portuguese verb esquecer. Just how conjugations in triconsonantal languages entail the addition of various vowels to the root, Portugoose instead adds various consonants to its vowel roots. For example, the first person singular past for trivocalic roots uses the pattern F, X, L, Y, V, Z, where the capital X, Y, Z's are the 3 vowels of the roots. And also there's mono and divocalic roots, which follow different conjugations. But anyway, back to the verb to forget. If you wanted to make that first person singular past, thus I forgot, would be this word, which looks like felevé or something like that, but no, it's... And Portuguese has 2 morphological tenses, a present and past tense. A semantic future is construed with the present tense of the sound represented by the letter I, or the verb to come, and the gerund infinitive of the verb, a form that acts both as a gerund and an infinitive. Now, there's two conjugations in Portuguese. The long or full conjugation, which is used for verbs that have trivocalic roots, as well as the short conjugation, which is used for verbs that have mono or divocalic roots. However, if this were all there was to it, Portugoose wouldn't be all that strange. But what if I told you that verbs are not only conjugated, but they're also declined, and sometimes even more than once? That is, the finite verb is the only thing in a clause that can receive marking. Thus, while Portugoose has markers for subject and object, they are added to the verb instead of to the noun that they actually belong to. For example, to say, I forgot the table, you would take the form we constructed earlier and append the active singular definite object particle, which looks like that, to it, followed by the word for table, since Portugoose always places the verb at the start of the sentence, right? So putting it all together, we get... Of course, if a sentence contains an explicit subject, we may have to hold more than one particle to the verb. For instance, translating "the doctors forgot the table" would additionally necessitate the use of the active definite plural subject particle that, together with the word for doctor. Furthermore, the verb form has to be in the third person plural now, which would thus look as such. Thus, we have this sentence. Or alternatively, this sentence. In the second sentence, we can also observe another feature Portugoose inherited from Portuguese. Two adjacent instances of the same vowel are contracted, and a grave added to mark the contraction. Note that it is paramount that nouns be placed in the same order as the particles. Keep in mind that there is no marking of the nouns themselves whatsoever. For instance, the only reason that doctors is plural here is because the affix attached to the verb that corresponds to the word doctor happens to be plural. This also means that if we swap them to form this, the tables forgot the doctor, which, while grammatical, is also nonsense. You may have been able to tell just now that the goose we had reading that sentence sounded very confused there, and for good reason. Syntax. The morphology is already bad, but that's not all there is to it. See, we've already addressed how to form basic sentences, but we still need to talk about how Portugoose handles nesting, because the thing is, it doesn't. Now that's right, with the exception of simple temporal adverbials, Portugoose lacks the capacity to form dependent clauses. For example, instead of saying, I saw a fish that I needed to catch, a Portugoose would say, I saw a fish, I needed to catch it. Or, in Portugoose. For a more extreme example, let us come back to the text we had you try to pronounce. In the original English, it reads, "The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades into myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again." By contrast, the literal translation into Portuguese goes something like this: "The wheel of time turns, and ages come and go. They leave memories. Memories become legends. The legends vanish into myth. Even myth is already much forgotten. When the age comes again, it gave birth to it." Or, as a Portugoose would say, next time you see a goose, why don't you go and ask it? You a Portugoose? I hope you enjoyed this presentation on our findings about this beautiful, elegant, and certainly exotic new Romance language. I'd like to thank the patrons and YouTube members for supporting our wild antics through this situation. I'd like to give... Oh. The Roomba just begged for help. Don't worry. No, I got you. He doesn't like it when the Roomba talks. But he's okay when he's by my side. And Daryl's just himself. I'd like to thank Eternal for his excellent research and findings that contributed towards this presentation. Couldn't have done it without him. Despite how brutally wrong everyone was in their pronunciation attempts, I would like to thank everyone who participated in that little activity. Don't try to look up any sources as to the proof and validation of the existence of this language. This is extremely new findings that Eternal and I have just found, and we are working on the process of getting it academically published. So don't start looking in the magazines yet. It'll get there. It'll get there, just not yet. So overall, thank you to everyone for watching. Remember, Cursed Conlang Circus 3 is on. This had nothing to do with that. This is totally not a Cursed Conlang. No, not at all. I don't know what you're talking about. But yes, Circus is on. Go watch that announcement video if you haven't seen it yet. It explains all the rules and everything, except one clarification. I made a YouTube short about it, but the time limit thing I talked about in the announcement video, that doesn't apply anymore. It can be as long as it needs to. It is the burden of the voter to sit through the entertaining content and skip through the unentertaining content. Democracy. Yep. That's pretty much it for me for now. So until next time, nga is out. You can't hurt us anymore. I, Robot Roomba, go back to your palace. Yeah. Petition to make this the new international auxiliary language? Step aside, Esperanto.